Hello, and welcome to Episode 4 of The More You Nole, a podcast about Florida State University. I'm your host, Mike, Director of Social Media for Florida State's Office of Admissions. Thanks for downloading this week's episode. To ensure you don't miss future episodes, please subscribe to The More You Nole on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. On this week's episode, I speak with Billy Francis, Director of Florida State's Student Veterans Center. We'll learn about his life at FSU going all the way back to high school, his time in the Air Force and ROTC, and how the Veterans Center provides support for veterans and their dependents at Florida State. Please enjoy the episode. All right, I'm here with Billy Francis, Director of Florida State's Students Veterans Center. Thanks so much for being here today.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, could you just please introduce yourself to our audience? Just tell them a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am a Floridian. Moved to Florida, I think, probably sometime around 65, from Jacksonville to Tallahassee in 72. Graduated from Florida High School on campus at Florida State University. Went to Florida State University through the Air Force ROTC program. Got a chance to fly airplanes for the Air Force. Wound up doing 26 years. My last 3 were as the Air Force ROTC commander back at the school, our alma mater, Florida State. And so our last 3 years in the Air Force were here in Tallahassee at Florida State. And from there, Florida State decided to open a Veterans Center. And I threw my name in the hat to transition from my military career back to Florida State University, got a chance to lead that charge. And we've been at it now coming up on 9 years this November.
Wow, that's really awesome. I didn't know you went to Florida State. So obviously, and I didn't know you went to Florida High either. So you've been around campus a long time. How do you think it's changed over the years?
Oh, my goodness. So when I was here, most of the parking lots were gravel with railroad ties. And there was the only landscaping I can remember on campus, Mike, was up around Westcott. Mm-hmm. Now, when you walk around campus, it feels like you're in a resort area, if you will. In comparison. And the architecture has a common theme, back to the beginning of the university with the red brick and the red tile roofs. But the community and the sense of community at Florida State that I think makes Florida State a special place is stronger now than it was when I was in school. And part of that's probably because I am in the administrative part of the university now and have learned more about what goes on behind the scenes. But it's a great place to be, and we're excited about everything that's going on and to be a part of Florida State University. Cool.
So how did you get involved in your field of work?
Well, we were transitioning out of the Air Force. And so we needed, I wanted to start that second career. And it was interesting because in my life, you hear often, hey, find your passion, do your passion. And I would think about what my passion was from the time I was young throughout my 30s. And I still really couldn't identify exactly what my passion was. I like to do a lot of things. And it was probably in my mid 40s that I finally realized what I really loved to do was help people. And then I laughed because I thought, I could have done virtually any career and helped people. And I spent a lot of time as a young man trying to think that, hey, I had to get this career choice exactly right because I only had one shot at it. And if I missed it, I was going to miss out on life and making the biggest impact that I could. And I didn't realize that, hey, as long as I was helping people, it wasn't what I did so much. It was how I did what I did and who I did it for. And I realized that in my mid-40s. And so transitioning the Air Force, I knew I wanted to do something where I got a chance to help people, to walk alongside them, if you will, through challenges in life. And the timing of this was a blessing in that Florida State decided to open a Veterans Center right about the same exact time I was needing to retire. And so I threw my name in the hat and got a chance, like I said, to lead this. FSU gave me the opportunity to walk through this college transition and then into the transition from college into careers or graduate school with student veterans that chose FSU as their choice of higher learning, their university. And so that's how that transition went.
Oh, that's really interesting. So the Veterans Center has been around for, like you said, it's about 9 years. Can you tell us a bit about what the Veterans Center does and what you do there?
Sure. So we opened the doors of the Veterans Center at Florida State University on 11/11/11. And that's Veterans Day of 2011. Yep. And it's a really easy date to remember, but it also is a date that I think is just cool, and it represents a stake driven in the ground by a university, Florida State University, that was Florida State College for Women in 1947. And then with the return of veterans from World War II, and the entry of men to Florida State University who were veterans, there was not enough room for them at the other universities. And so they sent a group here to Florida State. They were the T-Buffers, the Tallahassee branch of the University of Florida. And with the addition of those GIs, the legislature about a year later voted to change the name of Florida State University, or the Florida State College for Women, to the Florida State University, and the rest is history. As you look at the veteran population, it's a unique and underrepresented population on college campuses. Kind of the demographic differences for your veterans. I think, and at Florida State, we've identified 5 major things that are really different about the veteran population, and that is, they're older than your first time in college students. Our average age right now of our student veterans at Florida State is 32. And so when you get, a 32-year-old showing up on a college campus with 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, that's a decade's worth of difference. And that's a whole lot of life. That period of your life, there are so many things that are going on and so many experiences. It's just a big difference. And the other piece is, you're leaving oftentimes the military, and inside the military, you have a great sense of community, a great sense of identity. Every day I get up, I put on a uniform. It's got my name on it. It's got the branch of the service that I serve in on it. It's got my job that I do, my MOS, my rate, my AFSC. And then I'm in a unit, and I typically have that unit insignia on that uniform too. So I have a great sense of identity in the military, and I also have a great sense of purpose. I additionally, typically the things that we're doing in the military, I can measure at the end of each day how much I got done. And a lot of times I can see it. And so I get to this college campus. I'm older. I'm probably lacking that sense of identity that I had. I'm going to school to try and achieve a goal that's out in the future several years. And now I'm facing, in many cases, 3 bureaucracies, if you will. So I've got the university admissions piece, right, and getting through all that. I've got the GI Bill benefit. If I have benefits, I'm working through with the VA to get through that bureaucracy. How do I get my school paid for through my GI Bill benefits? And then the other one, sometimes our veterans are working with the VA medical and that bureaucracy too. And so I'm facing 3 bureaucracies. And, when people are faced a lot of times with a ton of choices all at once, our common response for all of us is to kind of back up from that and go, whoa. And so that's another challenge that is unique to the veteran population. Another piece is, if I'm 32, it's probably been a while since I've been in a formal course of academic training. And so my academic confidence and the unknown of that, in that has not been a recent experience for me. And so I'm a little apprehensive, perhaps, going into that. And then I talked a little bit about it earlier, but the achievement horizon is very different in the university community than it is in the military a lot of times. I'm going to take a class and I'm going to get a grade 4 months from now. And during that time, between now and then, am I going to get the same kind of data-driven or hard feedback every day, letting me know exactly where I am regarding my performance, like I may have gotten in the military under my AFSC? When I was flying airplanes, we'd go out and fly airplanes, we'd land, and we would have just a a boatload of data on how we did. Did we meet our times? Did we meet, did things get where they needed to get, when they needed to get there? Did we make it back alive? Those kinds of things, very measurable. Whereas in school, now I'm going for this degree, it could be 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And a lot of those measurables are just not as hard as they were in the military. And so that can be challenging. And then the other thing that we've seen and learned is that, what's your post-service sense of purpose? When you were in the military, you had I think, a very clear sense of purpose. Hey, here's why I'm in, here's what we stand for, and here's what my job is in that. And so now I'm going to school. Why am I doing that for sure? And what is my post-service sense of purpose? So when you step back and you look at these things, you say, okay, well, if I'm going to transition out of the military, I'm kind of moving into a demographic that it's primarily, and the majority is not of those people who have served. They're not veterans. And so they're not going to potentially have a great understanding of the experience that, I've gone through. And so as I go into that future, college is really a great step when you think about it. If you pull that back some, because at a college, like at Florida State, we're the Seminoles. We're Florida State University. And that's very similar to being in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps. Now, when I say that, I just mean it in terms of a sense of identity, right? And if you go down a step underneath that, if you're inside, let's say, the College of Engineering, that's like, or what your major is, that's like what you're doing inside the Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marine Corps. It's the branch I'm in: infantry, aviation, logistics, supply, or communications. What my MOS or my rate or my FSC is, it gives me that sense of identity in that major. So I have a subset: Florida State, Seminoles, Garnet Gold, Renegade, Chief Osceola. I've got shirts I can wear. I've got that identity. I break that down one more step, and now I've got my college or my major, which is more like what I'm doing. And then even underneath that, you've got your student organizations. You have student government, you've got the Veterans Student Union, you have Greek life, all those opportunities for our students to be involved in smaller organizations on the campus that are like units or platoons even. And so it does really kind of line up very well in terms of the offerings that are out there to give veterans that are transitioning that sense of identity, or closer to it, than other options for them when they transition. And so at Florida State, what we did was we said, hey, we understand these challenges that I mentioned. And so in order to serve that population, let's start or create a one-stop shop for veterans, Guard, active duty, reserve, and dependents. And so we want to create a space on campus where that group of people can go, and they can and oftentimes get their question answered right away. Or if they don't, they can get it within, we can link them within one email or one phone call to somebody that can answer their question. And so it's that one-stop shop to ease that transition, to order those bureaucracies, prioritize those tasks for them, to give them a sense of community around a group of people that shares that common veteran or military experience, and to give them a sense of empowerment within that group to get out then into the non-veteran population and become a part of the university's community, the fabric, if you will, to weave themselves into the fabric of the university, of the community of Tallahassee, back into the state of Florida and back into the nation. So the goal at Florida State, which is a little different than at other colleges, is we are trying to be a national beacon of veteran support and success. And the way we define that is, so you'll hear a lot about being veteran friendly and veteran empowering, and you say, okay, well, what is that? And the scope is just so broad. There's no common definition of what that really means nationally. And at FSU, if you ask me and our staff what that means, that is, what is your veteran graduation rate, and how, your post-graduation placement rate? in terms of, we want 100% of our veterans to graduate, and we want 100% of our veterans, military, Guard, active duty, reserve, and dependents, into careers within, or graduate school within 6 months of graduation. That's how we're defining how we're doing in the veteran arena. What's our grad rate and how well are they doing when they transition? And to do that, we have the one-stop shop, and everything we do there is to initiate, cultivate, and sustain relationships between this population that we've talked about. But then, very importantly, and to empower that group, it's to initiate, cultivate, and sustain relationships with the non-veteran population. Because as veterans, when we get out and go into our workforce, we're going to work with the majority of people who are going to not be veterans. And if we only want to work around or be around veterans, if we had a choice, we shouldn't have gotten out. We should have stayed in. Some people don't have a choice. They have to get out. But we have to look ourselves in the mirror and say, hey, this is just the way it is. And the sooner I develop skills or become comfortable with getting to know and work with people that don't share my military experience, the more satisfying and I think happier, and this has been our experience, our veterans are going to be as they go forward.
Great. So you mentioned about the one-stop shop and how you guys are, really trying to take a really holistic approach to helping our veterans succeed. To that end, what kind of services does the Veterans Center provide?
So in terms of services at the Veterans Center, we try and think about that from basically, an emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, and social aspect. Okay, so from the human experience, we're trying to cover each one of those areas. And the way we do that first is we try and get to know our student veterans. I think, like you heard us talk about, we want to meet them. We want to get to know them. We want to get to know their first name. We want to know about them, where they're from. And because each student veteran has different needs, you can't cookie cutter all of this for everyone. So the first step is getting to know them. And the second step is once we get to know them and we can build some trust, and they'll let us know, then they feel comfortable with let us knowing what they need and what their needs are. We can then plug them into the resources that currently exist at Florida State across those areas I just talked about. So the other thing we try not to do is duplicate resources at FSU. So, we have liaisons across campus, and you can see those on our website. If you go to the students page and you see resources and you see the Veterans Liaison tab, there are dozens of people who have volunteered to be the point of entry, if you will, in their respective areas, the experts, to help veterans navigate those areas. And so, like I said, to walk through this transition and this experience with them. And what we ask our student veterans to do is just in the subject line of the email is the first word, write the word veteran and then colon and whatever you want to talk about. And that helps our liaisons sort. And so now we'll have counselors who are standing by to work with the veterans, 2 designated counselors in the counseling center. We have admissions liaisons. We have academic liaisons inside advising. Inside the wellness center, we have liaisons. And so over in the Leach Center and outdoor rec, we have liaisons. So we have liaisons in all those emotional, spiritual, mental, physical, and social areas that we will plug our veterans into as they, show a need or request a need for that. We don't assume that our veterans need things. We don't force things on our veterans. We try and let them know what's out there and then give them the opportunity to decide for themselves those things that they want to engage. And that has worked very well for us so far. When we started all of this in 2011, the veteran graduation rate was 69%. And our most recent official graduation rate, which is a 2018 number, we should get the 19 numbers here soon, is 86%. And wow. So that's a good number. But at the same time, we don't want to rest till we can get to that 100%. We're going for 100%. I think any goal less than that is not a goal. We're trying to get to 100%. So while we say 86, well, that means 14 out of every 100 that we have are not graduating. And why? Why is that? Do we know why? For sure, in some cases we do. In other cases we don't. And so the goal is to be that place all of our veterans, Guard, military, active duty, reserve, and dependents feel safe going to and asking questions and sharing adversity, because a lot of times this population too, another unique element of this population is that they'll tend to think they need to do it by themselves. Mm-hmm. They just got to reach down, pick up their bootstraps when things get hard and just press on. And one of the things I always talk about is, if you were to study people who are successful and search for their common traits, one of the things that you'll find is that successful people will ask for advice, and successful people will ask what resources are available to them to help them navigate challenging times. And they'll also ask for help when they need it too. And that's not something that it comes natural to us in terms of thinking about that. Most of the time we think going in, hey, people are going to have a lot more respect for me if I do this all by myself. But in the end, nowhere on, my diploma does it say Billy asked for help 21 times. Nowhere does it say Billy said, hey, here's the situation I'm in. Here are my goals. These are my challenges, my limitations. If you were given that, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? And to do that, to ask those kind of questions of people who have recently walked the ground that you are currently trying to cross, can be invaluable, the advice they can give you, So we want to empower them in that understanding and then connect them to those resources and help them build that network that's going to empower them post their Florida State experience.
Great. So we've talked a lot about the services that you provide directly for veterans so far, but I know you also work with dependents. You've mentioned them a few times. So how does the Veterans Center assist with all of the, these I think are predominantly freshmen and some transfers coming in whose parents were a veteran and have passed the GI Bill benefit on to them?
Yeah, exactly. And so my daughter just graduated in May, and she used my GI Bill to pay for her school. And so the majority of our students using GI Bill benefits at Florida State right now are dependents. And so we are working with those students from orientation to each semester to help them register for basically get their school paid for through their GI Bill benefits. And so we are linking them with advisors. We are making sure that all their classes count towards their degree, which is a requirement by the VA. That, this GI Bill only pays for classes that contribute to the degree, the awarding of the degree. Mm-hmm. And so that's the primary support that we are giving to our dependent population. Our student organization, the Student Veterans of America, our association, Student Veterans Association, is open to dependents. Students for America's Military, SAM, is another RSO that's open for dependents. There's just a number of things that our dependents can get involved with here on campus, but the primary way we support them is through the certification of their benefits.
Great. And then for students who maybe aren't even dependents, if just students want to help support the Veterans Center, how can they get involved?
Well, come see me. And my door is always open. We try and do that. And one of the things I'll say when I talk to orientation leaders, students around campus is that, the doors of the Veterans Center aren't just for veterans, Guard, active duty, reserve. It's for any students at Florida State University. And so some of the most fun times I've had is in talking through and walking through, primarily with orientation leaders, but with younger students at Florida State that are not veterans that want to get to know about veterans, or they're thinking about joining the military. And so they come to see me and say, hey, what's it like in the military? And I get a chance to talk to them about that and maybe give them some things to think about and some questions to ask. but our doors are always open, and my door is open, and I'm there to help any student, if they have any military affiliation or not, achieve their goals. And so, a lot of times what that means is encouragement when things aren't going, in your favor necessarily. And so how do we think about adversity in life? Is it something we should try and avoid? And frankly, as I started thinking about that, it's kind of like, hey, life without adversity would be like Star Wars without the Empire, right?
Yeah.
And when you really start to peel it back, you go, it'd be actually kind of boring. And really, when you think about your life, it's adversity that kind of makes it exciting. And I'm not saying we should try and jump into it, but when it comes, instead of just trying to get out of it, maybe to engage it. And really, the wild thing is that we aren't really judged for whether we're successful or not in that adversity. We're judged for whether we give up or not. Because going back to Star Wars, people keep reading on as long as it says, and Mike got up.
Right.
And Billy got up. And so what happened? And so in the end, all that really matters is that we get up one more time than we get knocked down. And I think when we start to realize that failure is not permanent, nor does it have to define us unless we choose to make it that way. When we start to understand that if you can't make any mistakes, what can you make? You really can't make anything because you're going to make a mistake. And if you can't risk that, well, life's not going to be very much fun. And so to talk to students and try and just give them different perspectives and techniques to deal with adversity is something that I really do love to do. And our doors are open for any student to help along those lines.
Well, that's awesome. So I want to go a bit back in time now. So before you were the director of the Veteran Center, you worked in FSU's Air Force ROTC program, heading that up. Can you tell our listeners a bit about that experience and then just a bit about FSU's ROTC offerings in general?
Sure. So it was quite the opportunity for me to get to come back to Florida State and to sit in the office that I commissioned in for my last 3 years to pour into, if you will, every one of the students that had decided to try and to go into the Air Force as officers after they graduated, and to give them as many tools and techniques and encouragement as I possibly could from my experience in the Air Force to help them care for their airmen. And I think to help their airmen then achieve their goals. And in doing that, achieve the mission of their unit and of their service so that at the end of the day, you and I can choose. And that, what I mean by that is just really broad. And so to have an opportunity to be still a part and to invest in everyone's ability in this country to be able to choose, hey, do I believe there's a God or not? And that's my choice. What do I want to do? Do I want to be the president of the United States? Do I want to be a lawyer? Do I want to be a doctor? Where do I want to live? And we, I think, sometimes can take that choice for granted. A lot of people in the world do not have those kinds of choices. And while the United States is not a perfect place, right now we do have that choice, that ability to choose. And so to be able to invest in the officers that were going to go out and take care of our airmen, that were investing their lives in our ability to choose as a people in this nation, was just a great privilege. And it was, I really, one of the coolest things that'll happen to me is when I get a note from someone who graduated. And recently, Jessica Payne wrote me a note, and she was one of the cadets that graduated and is now coming up on a promotion to major and making a big difference out in the Air Force. And we have a challenge coin that we give only to our veteran grads and our ROTC commissionees. And so anybody that hears this, that is a graduate of Florida State University and is either a veteran or is actively serving right now, if you want one of the exclusive Florida State veteran challenge coins, shoot me a note at W. Francis, Francis, at fsu.edu, and we'll get you hooked up.
That's great. I'm sure our veteran listeners will love that. Let's see. I got a few more questions here. I know you teach the Strategies for Veteran Success course. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the SLS 3407 Strategies for Veteran Success is an opportunity. The vision for that is to get every one of the first semester veterans in the same room once a week. And, to initiate, cultivate, and sustain those relationships. And so we meet up in that class. We get to know each other. The majority of what we do in that class is we tour campus, and we go to the places on campus like the library and the gym, outdoor rec, recreation area. We go to the wellness center, the campus clinic. At the end of the class, we get a insider's tour of the whole football operation in the weight room and the training room and the locker room and that whole 9 yards. And over that time, we get to know each other. They get to know me, I get to know them, they get to know each other. And those relationships, like I talked about, that I believe are at the foundation of our success, are built. The things that we'll talk about there, we talk about time management, goal setting, goal measurement. We talk about how to take a test, how to read a book, note making, not note taking. We point them towards the ACE workshops that the university runs that are so empowering, that are free. And we put them in touch with those people that are doing those things so that they feel comfortable reaching out for those resources. The Career Center is another place we go. And we tour the Career Center, and what a great Career Center we have at Florida State University, and a great relationship with the Career Center. Because at the end of the day, if they're not going to graduate school, and even if they are, the Career Center can help them get into the graduate school, they're going to go into a career. And so establishing those relationships with those enablers on campus, right the first semester they get there, results in a much more powerful experience over the time that they spend at Florida State than if they, pull their hoodie up and kind of stick to themselves and walk through campus alone during their 2 to 4 years at Florida State.
Yeah, it's interesting that you describe it like that. It sounds extremely similar to a class that I took my freshman year, which was a Strategies for First Year Success class. That's it's not offered anymore because the material has been rolled into the freshman interest group colloquiums. So if you are an incoming freshman, you're not a veteran, and you're interested in a similar experience, definitely look into the freshman interest groups. It's also a 1 hour a week colloquium course where you do very much similar things. We didn't get the cool football facility tour. That's a kind of a bonus for the veterans, I guess. But we went to the library, Career Center, all those other things. And I agree, that really helped me get settled at Florida State in my first semester and kind of set me up for success the rest of my time there.
Yeah, if you think about it, Mike, if all you do at a university is just go to class, then why do I go to one school versus another? Now, of course, if they have a major that I want, well, that's understandable. But it's in the extracurricular activities and the engagement in the outside the classroom resources that the university has that are so extensive. That really are going to make and create the networks that you're going to have when you graduate, and build soft skills in terms of getting to know people and getting to know them and caring for them. That's going to empower you post-graduation.
Yep. Okay, so we're done with the bulk of our serious questions. We've got some quick fire fun questions for you now. This one's actually, a lot of people say this is really difficult. What's your favorite thing about Florida State?
Favorite thing about Florida State is the fight song. And basically when the marching chiefs play the fight song at any a graduation, a football game, a basketball game, a baseball game, I love the fight song at Florida State. And hearing that just brings back so many memories, but also thoughts of people. And like I said, those relationships that I have now, that I'm going to have, but then the ones that I've had in the past. And it makes me think about all the Noles that have gone before, and all those that are going to come after. And so I'd have to say it's the fight song.
That's a great answer. I'll tell you, the fight song right now is my hand washing song because it takes just about 20 seconds to sing. So every time I wash my hands, I'm singing it in my head.
Good deal.
Okay, what's your favorite, if you got to grab lunch somewhere around campus, what's your favorite place to go?
Vail.
Vail. Okay, started by an FSU grad. Yeah, that place is good.
Yeah.
That place is, focuses on healthy, they have a lot of vegan options. They've got acai bowls, poke bowls, like all the good stuff. They do meal delivery, and they're right in College Town. They're a really good option.
It's a good walk for me.
Yeah.
And it's healthy food. And, that's the thing. It's if you are smart, your small choices made thousands of times over and over again, like what you eat, you typically have more fun.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Everyone's stuck inside right now. So what are you binging? Are you watching anything, reading anything?
Whew. I am binging on my grandson. My wife worked at the Career Center at Florida State for years. And then our son, our oldest, and his wife moved to Tallahassee with our probably 6-month-old grandson so they could raise him here. And she stopped working to take care of him. And so he is with us Monday through Friday, all day long. And so I am working with him and getting to play with him and watch him grow. And that's been a really, because this time he's just turned 2. This time he'll never be that age again, obviously. But to be around, to be able to see that and be a part of that has been an incredible blessing for me. And so that's what's been taking up the majority of my time since this has all started. And of course, getting a lot of projects done around the house that take more time typically than a Saturday morning or Saturday will afford.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got a couple of those done as well. Let's see. Okay. My last question that I ask all of our guests, if you could only give our incoming students, and you can answer this if you want to just focus on veterans or the entire student population, but if you could only give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
Work really hard. Have a great attitude, especially when it's hard here, and don't give up. When you think about things, because things will get tough, because anything that's worth anything is hard. And it doesn't really matter what it is. It could be financial problem, academic problem, relational problem, health problem. In many of those instances, if you just stop for a minute and say, how many people in the world would take every problem I've got right now to trade with me to be where I am at Florida State University, going to class, to have the future possibilities that are out there for me as long as I stay at it, as long as I don't give up. I think there's millions of people that would trade in a heartbeat in each of those instances. And so I would just say, hey, come see me when it gets hard, and I'll encourage you.
That's a personal tip from Billy Francis. He will help you out, listeners. Go see him. He's a great guy. Thanks so much for being on the podcast today, and go Noles.
Go Noles.
Thanks again to Billy Francis for his time, and also to Reinhard Lurch in the Student Veterans Center for helping to arrange the interview. If you'd like to learn more about the Veterans Center and their services, check out veterans.fsu.edu. You can also follow them on social media. They're at FSU_vets on Twitter and Instagram, and FSU Vets on Facebook. If you've enjoyed the episode, we'd greatly appreciate you taking a few minutes to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Please also share the show with any of your friends or family who might enjoy it. As always, our theme music is the world-renowned Florida State University Marching Chiefs, recordings courtesy of Mark Records, Clarence, New York, markcustom.com. If you have any questions you'd like answered or feedback on the show, please email admissions@fsu.edu and include the word podcast in your subject line. You can also reach us on social media. We are at FSU Admissions on Twitter and Facebook, and at FSU.admissions on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe to the show in Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast app of choice. Thanks for listening. Go Noles.